and welcome to Long Live the Queen, where we talk of the women who made history. And by we, I mean the royal we, because it's just me. Today we're going to talk about the Outlaw King, the fact and the fiction.
One day we will be remembered.
The Outlaw King. Netflix, Chris Pine and Florence Pugh. We start in Scotland, 1304. When their king died with no direct heir, the Scottish lords appointed King Edward I of England to help choose a successor. Instead, he seized power and brutally occupied the country. The Scots rebelled, led by Sir William Wallace, and a bitter war ensued. Wallace was defeated at Falkirk and went into hiding. All resistance crushed, the Scottish lords complete their surrender to Edward as he lays siege to Stirling, the last castle in Scottish hands. And this is all pretty accurate. If you were to watch this with Braveheart kind of in order, this movie would start toward the end of the movie, after the Battle of Falkirk, but before Wallace was captured. In Braveheart, the Bruces captured him, but in reality it was John de Monteith. It was a totally different guy. We see who we have to assume is Robert the Bruce, pledging loyalty to King Edward I. All the lords are surrendering in exchange for getting their land back and being underlords to the King of England. The king says, Bruce and Common, you both have claims, but I can't pick. I'm going to just be in charge instead. And you guys shake hands. Let's party. And that's kind of what happened. They had lost after the fall of William Wallace, and they were still angry, but they weren't united. Robert the Bruce walks out of the royal tent and out into the open. The Prince of Wales is there, and he remembers back to the day when they were younger. Bruce mentions he was only bigger because he was older, and that's true. Robert the Bee was about 10 years older than the Prince of Wales. And in 1304, Rob the Bee was 30 and the Prince of Wales was about 20. The prince wants to duel. Accurate? I don't know, maybe. The king was constantly disappointed in his son's ability to be competent in all things war-related. They sword fight, and the prince asks about William Wallace. Rob the Bee says he's the last rebel standing because all the rest of them had recently surrendered to the other king. The prince asks if he's mad. Rob the Bee says he just loved his country more than his life. The prince says, lucky you all didn't think that. Burn. He's pretty much, aren't you glad to be a sellout? There's a guy there then. He's, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, trying to get his attention. Your father needs you. King Ed I is like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, those vibes hit me as accurate. The king tells the prince to sit down and grow up. He's all, Robert made me, which is 20-year-old vibes. James Douglas is here to see the king. He wants his land back. His father was a traitor to the crown, so the Douglas lands had been taken. So far, this is all pretty accurate. If you are going for accuracy, this is maybe the true Braveheart movie. James Douglas is the one that took Robert the Bruce's heart on crusade and named him Braveheart. This is like their friendship origin story. So James Douglas is like, I want my land back. And the king's all, your dad's a traitor. No. And then the king makes a royal decree. I never want to hear the name Douglas again. Rude. Then the king is all, join us. We have a spectacle. The royal we, because it's just him. Light the Greek fire. Greek fire, if you don't know, would burn even if it was on water. It was vicious. They catapult Stirling Castle because why not? That's what they came for. It was ceremonial. And then he accepts their surrender. Rude. Then they party because that's what chivalry was kind of all about. Then the king is giving Elizabeth de Burgh to Robert the Bruce in marriage. Nope, we have our first time war. This did happen, but 2 years in the past, in 1302. But in 1302, 13-year-old Elizabeth de Burgh married 28, I think, year old Robert the Bruce. Yikes. So they're having it happen a bit later, and that, I get it. We see Robert's father telling him that he has mourned her long enough. He means Robert's first wife, Isabella of Mar. She died just having her first baby, Marjorie, 6 years before, or 8 years before if it's 1304. The timeline's a little wonky. There's a good sign that the king is approving this marriage because Elizabeth de Burgh was daughter to the king's good friend and ally. The king was also her godfather. It was a good sign as long as she wasn't going to be there as a spy to the other king. Then we see Outlaw King. Then we see Robert the Bruce fighting with his brothers, verbally fighting with his brothers. We took an oath, we can't break it. Chivalry was big on oaths. Then we see Elizabeth in her carriage, learning about her new husband. She's on the way and like, what's he like? Tell me about him. She didn't get to see his Tinder profile. Kind of true, but her age is way off. This woman is in her 20s. If it is 1302 when they got married, she's 13. If it's 1304, like they said before, she's still only 15. So not accurate, but I get it. Then we see Rob the Bee with the little girl. She's asking, do I have to call her mother? Marjorie Bruce. No, you don't have to call her mother. Good, because she was just 13. Marjorie hopes Elizabeth likes her dog. Elizabeth's carriage arrives. Her father gets out. My daughter, Elizabeth. He's all, my lady. She's all, my lord. I'm sad I never get to talk like that in everyday life. I kind of want to. And Elizabeth is like, I totally like your dog, Marjorie. Then they get married and they have another party. They have a lot of wars, but they also had a lot of parties. Work hard, play hard. That was their whole thing. He asks if she's enjoying herself, and she says she's trying to, and he appreciates her honesty. Then they're in the bedroom. There's a priest, a blessing of the bed, that whole thing. And it's the same room that Isabella of Mar once lived in, his first wife. He then goes to his own room. Polite of him. And the guards at the door are all, that was fast. This is how marriages were intended to work back then. They got married immediately, but some getting to know you time was sometimes encouraged. Sometimes. But sometimes not. But the real 13-year-old Elizabeth didn't have her first baby until she was well into her 20s. Then there is tax collecting. And peasants are upset. The taxes were supposed to go down once the war was over, and the war is over, but they weren't. That's because Edward I made the Scottish pay reparations for not just the war, but also the subsequent occupation. And that would make me angry too, having to pay for my own occupation. No thank you. Then we see some jerks move out of the way for the king. Not the actual king, but it's his men. Remember Braveheart? Like, the king's men are an extension of the king. They needed fighting men. Occupation wasn't an easy game. Elizabeth steps up to the men. My father is Richard de Burgh. Maybe you've heard of him. The soldiers are scared. Richard de Burgh was a friend and ally of the king. He was kind of a big deal. The scared soldiers leave. Rob the Bee says that was brave of her. They say goodnight. Rob the Bee Sr. is coughing and talking about being friends with King Ed I. But he's all, mistakes were made. I shouldn't have trusted him. Because his son is about to fight back. And then Rob the Bee Sr. dies. We have a funeral, and now Rob the Bee Jr. is head bitch in charge. Even though his father died, he still has to bring those occupation taxes to the king. Elizabeth doesn't want him to go. When he gets there, there's an angry mob. What's going on? Wallace. They killed William Wallace. This is right at the end of Braveheart, when Rob the Bee is all, follow me instead, because Wallace is gone. There's a riot, and again, the poor horses. Rob the Bee is all, riding's not my style, let's get out of here. If Wallace is dead, the year is now 1305. He gets home and is all, Elizabeth, go away, I need to talk to my brothers. And she's like, I'm your wife, so I can stay. And he's like, nope, sorry, you can't. I don't know if you're a spy yet. Rude, but okay. He tells his brothers they have to break their oath. Shame on you.
All right, that's it. Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Stop.
Rob explains they killed Wallace, and the people, they're angry. But he will need his brother's help. Elizabeth is hiding and listening to every word, kind of giving off spy vibes and not really helping her reputation. Later, he tells her, sorry I was rude, but she's still mad. She reads a lot, she has a lot of time to form her own opinions, and if it's 1305, she's also 16, and 16-year-olds are famous for knowing a lot of things. She says she's his wife, and she chooses him, and they kiss. But also goodnight, because he can't go too far with his wife. They don't know each other that well yet. He's being respectful. There is a discussion. Can they trust Common? The answer is no. No, they can't. But Common insists on meeting. Common doesn't want to rebel against the king. Bruce is all, live together, die alone. And Common is all, Wallace was a loser. Common is going to betray them to the King of England. So Rob the Bee kills him in a church. And yeah, that totally happened. Robert the Bruce met in a church with John Common to talk war, and only Robert the Bruce exited with his life. Killing someone inside a church was a real bad look, but his brother is ride or die. And he's all, look, he made you kill him. You had no choice. It wasn't your fault. So then we have to talk to the bishops of Scotland, and they are the ones who you have to get approval from to be anointed as king. And they're all, yeah, I mean, you probably shouldn't have killed him in a church, but since he's dead, the job is all yours. Robert the Bruce has to be crowned at Scone, but it's dangerous because that's closer to the English than any of them want to be. Back in London, King Ed is holding court. The prince wants to be put in charge of the situation. The Prince of Wales did seem to have a thing about beating the big bad Bruce. He says he'll raise the dragon banner, and I think this is made up. But basically it means, like, come at me, bro, this is war. Like, we're not being polite anymore. I'm real mad. The king declares Bruce an outlaw king. So now they've said the title of the movie. You know it's serious. So on the way to Scone, Rob the Bee gives Elizabeth flowers. Cute. Marjorie wants to take her dog, but no, this isn't a trip for a dog. On the road to Scone, they stop because there's a guy in the road, and it's James Douglas. Remember the we're not saying Douglas anymore guy. He wants to join Bruce because this is the start of their relationship. Rob is all, you should know, I killed a guy in a church. And James is all, it's cool, bro, I don't mind. You can kill bad guys anywhere you want. Then King Ed the First is knighting a whole bunch of guys to fight Bruce, and he did do that. He knighted a whole bunch of guys to go fight Bruce. Then Rob the Bee is at Scone to be crowned, and they talk about how the English stole the stone of Scone. Again, facts, they did do that. So he gets crowned by a lady. And they totally skip over who this lady is. But it seems like it's supposed to be Isabella Macduff. That is who put the crown on his head. And she comes up again, sort of. So they go all Old Testament, Robert the Bruce, son of, all the way back in his lineage until they get to King David, King of Scotland, proving that he is descended from a royal line. They did have to go back multiple generations because they hit that dead end. But they did it, and Bruce was the last one alive. God bless the King of Scots. And he says he's the king of the people, not the land. Like, he's here, he's a man of the people. And the people and the nobles pledge loyalty. Everyone's in there, like, yeah, this could be good. Trouble, though, the English are at Perth. Valence's men are there, and that's close. And Valence is a real guy. He was kind of a big deal in both England and France. Robert the Bruce's army meets Valence's army, and Rob the Bee is all, give Perth back to us or else. Hi, I'm the King of Scotland. I don't know if you've heard of me. They're having a pre-battle parley to discuss terms because that's how war used to work. Rob's all, let's fight over there. And Valence is like, I don't fight on Sundays. It's the Lord's Day. And Bruce is like, okay, then tomorrow. All of this happened. Even though it's not great for me now. How about tomorrow? This movie has its moments, but it's pretty accurate. So the Scots make camp, or bivouac, to prepare for the next day's fight. Unfortunately, the English had decided to drop chivalry. Remember the whole dragon banner? And the Scots were still trying to be chivalric. So when Valence said tomorrow, Bruce believed him, but Valence wasn't telling him the truth.
It's a trap!
So Bruce brings Elizabeth wine in a bad cup, and she's all, bad cup, bad wine, but thanks. Then she says her famous quote, alas, we are but king and queen of the May. Yes, she did say that. She was basically saying, well, we're crowned now, and it'll be fun while it lasts, but it won't last long. They go into the tent, and sex. The queen, aka Florence Pugh, is topless, and that will be relevant later, believe it or not. There's flowers on the bed. They are both naked now. We see more of her than him as far as the nudity goes. Again, put a pin in that. Then we cut to her singing to Marjorie at bedtime. She's singing Marjorie to sleep. At this point, Elizabeth would have been about 17 and Marjorie would be about 10. Robert the Bruce would be in his early 30s. Little Marjorie is asleep, and Rob says, if I die tomorrow. And she says, no. And he repeats himself, if I die tomorrow, you are Marjorie's and she is yours. A lot to put on a 17-year-old, but okay. In the movie, she's like 25. And then, ambush on the camp. Valence was lying. And yes, in real life, he attacked around dusk. He wasn't waiting until tomorrow. He was fighting on the Lord's Day. This is why we can't have nice things, guys. Why we can't have chivalry anymore? Because of men like Valence. It was all a trick. They're all, Marjorie, get up, because the women and girls are fleeing. I don't know if this was pre-planned or just quick thinking, but Rob the Bee sent the noble ladies in camp off with his 27-year-old brother, Niall. The ladies who went with Niall Bruce were Rob's daughter, 10-year-old Marjorie, his wife, 17-year-old Elizabeth, his sister, 24-year-old Mary, and his other sister, 28-year-old Christina, and Isabella Macduff. I don't know how old she was, but remember the lady who put the crown on him? Her. So Marjorie has to get up, and they're fleeing, and they're flaming arrows, and Bruce uses his shield to defend his family and get them to the horses. Bruce is all, Marjorie, go, but Marjorie doesn't want to. Bruce is like, go with Elizabeth. I'm trying to fight a war here. This all did happen. The women fled with Niall while the army fought. So Bruce steals a horse after killing a guy, and fight, fight, fight. If you aren't new here, you know that I don't really cover the battles properly, but feel free to go watch it, The Outlaw King, on Netflix. So, fight, fight, fight. James Douglas is shouting Douglas because he's here for revenge, and he's kind of extra. Tents are burning and the Scots lose, but Robert the Bruce gets away with a handful of men, and gold is offered to anyone who leads them to Bruce. The women get to a nearby castle. This also happened. The castle was run by the family of Marjorie's late mother, so they could probably trust them. They were headed eventually for Orkney. Orkney was an island off the coast of Scotland. I mean, it still is an island off the coast of Scotland that was run by, at the time, the Norwegians. Robert the Bruce's sister, Isabel, had been Queen of Norway, so it was like, yeah, that little island over there, my sister will hook us up. Then we see Bruce with what is left of his army, but it isn't enough. It's a real small army. They asked Lord MacDougall to join them, and he's all hard pass. And Bruce is all, but King Ed is a jerk. And MacDougall's all, you've got some nerve. Comyn was my cousin, so F off. Remember murdered in the church guy? Oops. There's tension, and they part. The English are going around destroying anywhere they think had helped Bruce in any way, just burning stuff to the ground. Then Robert's army is getting on boats, but they get ambushed by MacDougall and his men. They're back, and they're still mad about that church murder. And then they fight. Blood, blood, more blood. Rob's army's even smaller now, but again, he gets away. The Prince of Wales is mad at Bruce. He's mad that he got away, but he does know where the wife and child are, so that's almost as good. But the ladies are on the move again. Quick, get to the trees so the English don't see you. The English are demanding, open the gates, but the ladies have left. But have they? They were caught by the English. They didn't get away. The prince is asking, where's your brother? And Niall's like, I don't know. Which is probably true. They didn't have cell phones. How would he know where they were once they scattered? Like, he could be anywhere at this point. So they hang, draw, and quarter Niall. Well, in the movie, they just hang and slice him open. I didn't see any drawing or quartering, but he's dead. And in reality, Niall was hung, drawn, and quartered just like William Wallace. They also kill the lord of the castle, but not the ladies. The ladies they capture. They were indeed taken to King Ed I. So then Robert the Bruce is trying to grow his army, but it's a no-go. They were all, look, we tried this with Wallace, remember Braveheart? Not again. So Bruce is all, call me when you change your mind. I've had it with the English. When you've also had it with the English, let me know, I'm game. Robert's army is practicing. One man to down the knight, the other to down the horse. Again, justice for war horses. Then we see Queen Elizabeth and Princess Marjorie, and they are locked up. But nuns come, take Princess Marjorie away, but just the princess. So Elizabeth says go, but Marjorie doesn't want to. In real life, Marjorie was taken to be cared for in a nunnery at the age of 10. But that wasn't the original plan, but we will get back to that. Back at the village, Robert the Bruce is on the run and misses his family, and then gets news that Niall was hung, drawn, and quartered, and all the women were captured. He finds out that the English took his wife and his daughter alive, but now they're in the hands of the English, which isn't great, and the English have hostages, important lady hostages. Rob's army, Trojan horse style, gets into the castle that his family was taken from. Fighting, burn it to the ground, that's what we're gonna do. And that's indeed what they did. The Scottish went all, if we can't have these castles, no one can have these castles. Chivalry is out of there, but the English threw it out first, and that's pretty accurate. James Douglas is all, with 2 or 3 guys, I can get my dad's land back, and it's super close. And Bruce is like, take 5, be safe, come back. So then we see Douglas, along with his men, enter the church, and then stabby, stabby, he heard they kill people in churches now. And the English didn't take their weapons to church. So Douglas had an easy time of it. Again, he's screaming, Douglas. All this did happen. They called him the Black Douglas in reality, and people were scared of him. He had a reputation for being extra in battle. Remember when he threw Robert the Bruce's heart in battle? That was in character for him. And just like that, they take the castle back. It was easy peasy. Douglas is all, I used to drink that water, he points at the well, poison it, and throw these enemies in it. And that did mostly happen. They got Douglas's castle back, and they poisoned the well with salt, and they threw dead livestock in it. So potato, potato, I guess. The vibe is definitely correct. Douglas tells the non-English, it's Palm Sunday, and this feast was prepared for your enemies, but have at it, and then join me with Robert the Bruce. Impressive, because Douglas did indeed get his castle back on Palm Sunday, and I appreciate that detail. Then we see the king being told about what happened. They think Douglas may be mad. The king is all, I stumbled this morning, and his courtier's all, relatable, my guy. Like, who doesn't stumble? And the king's like, look, here's the thing, I'm old, and I was just going to die in my bed, but I guess I'm fighting again because my son is not doing the job, and also YOLO. The Prince of Wales is all, never fear, father, I've got this. And the king is all, you captured a bunch of women? Good job. And I don't care for his tone. Back at Robert the Bruce, Kids are all, "Are you Robert the Bruce?" And he's all, "Yes, I am. Tell your friends." Then more reinforcements show up, including Drew, a squire they know. He's about, 16-ish. He has Robert's crown that he managed to grab, and he's returning it. Robert says, "Keep it for me," and Drew says he'll guard it with his life. Remember that line. So then back to Elizabeth. She's taken to a couple of people that I want to say are her parents, but if I'm totally honest, I'm not sure. I'm just going to say they're her parents, but they might just be two randoms. I don't know. The Prince of Wales joins them and is all, "My father's your godfather. Why you gotta be a traitor? But wait, there's a second chance. If you sign these annulment papers, he'll let you live." She almost signs, but then doesn't. And everyone in the room is like, "Do it, do it, do it." The prince says, "Rob will be dead soon, and then you can come home." But she's clever, and she's all, "Wait a minute, if he'll be dead soon, why do you need me to sign this? He's winning, isn't he?" All this did pretty much happen. I don't know the details, but she wouldn't sign the annulment papers. Then she laughs at him, and he grabs her by the hair and screams, "Why do you laugh at me?" And they're all, "Sign, sign, sign." She's, "I cannot. Not signing." They're like, "Guards," and then they put her in a hanging cage as punishment. This isn't accurate, but it's more accurate than I would like. If you remember, 5 royal ladies were taken. Bruce's sister Mary and Isabella Macduff, remember the lady who crowned Robert the Bruce? They were put in cages. The cage thing did happen to them. The cages were open to the elements and the public. They were on display. And they were in those cages for 4 years. Brutal. The king's other sister, Christina, and his wife, Elizabeth, were put into solitary confinement in nunneries, in pretty brutal conditions. And his daughter, Marjorie, was sent to be cared for by nuns. So that part happened. The kid part happened. But remember when I said that wasn't the original plan? A cage was made for little Marjorie too, but she never ended up being put in it. Maybe because she's so young. But I get it. It's a movie. They're trying to tell a story. And in this version, Elizabeth gets caged. Caging happened. It didn't happen to her. So back to Robert the Bruce. He's bathing in the river. And remember when I said put a pin in that sex scene? That was for right now. Robert the Bruce stands up. And we see full frontal. Not a stitch of clothing on. We don't usually see male actors at that level willing to do that scene. Male actors. Because remember earlier when Florence Pugh was full naked? That didn't shock me as much. Because she's female. I looked into it and people were talking about the Chris Pine's full frontal scene and he was annoyed. He said this shouldn't be a big deal. His co-star also had a nude scene that no one was talking about, and that's because we expect it from actresses and not from actors. And all I have to say is, thank you. That is refreshing and so correct. I appreciate that he was up for making it a fair playing field and that he was willing to put his opinion out there. So respect for Chris Pine. So anyway, we see Chris Pine. Respect Chris Pine, but then also, he's naked. We can't beat the English. They're fighting. We can't beat the English. And he's all, "They can come at me, bro. We need more men. We'll just piss them off. We'll just make them mad until they come attack us." That's the plan. King Ed is all, "Robert the Bruce and 50 men are kicking our ass." And again, yeah, they got the vibes right. We see Rob's army singing a Gaelic melody and King Edward's army not. I mean, if I'm picking armies to join, I'm joining the one with road songs. I'd be down bad crying at the gym all the way to war. King Edward stops on the side of the road and he's all, "Good job, guys. Thumbs up. Great job, fellas. There you go, champ." But he doesn't look good and he passes out. The king is in bed and he's all, "If I die, boil my body and take it into battle." And the prince is all, "Sure thing. We'll definitely do that." And that was a total normal request for that day, but it probably also didn't happen. It was a rumor, though. In reality, he mostly just said, "Don't let Piers Gaveston back in the country." For that drama, go back to my very first episode. So the king dies, and the princes all bury him here. This didn't happen. King Edward I is buried at Westminster Abbey, but it does drive home how awful the relationship that King Edward had with his son, the subsequent King Edward II. We see the English army invading Scotland. Rob the Bee is excited. This is what he wants. This is what he's been working toward. Rob the Bee and his pals are going all, "The English are coming." Very Paul Revere. More than 400 years before Paul Revere lived. They pass an old man with an apple cart and warn him, but he's like, yeah, okay. Remember that old man. They're all then digging trenches and singing. Again, the army I would join is the army that sings the most. Then we see the English army trampling apples. And then the cart overturned and then the old man. Sad. Rude. Like, why you gotta kill the old guy? He has delicious apples. What a waste of both people and apples. So then there's a cow in the road, and James is bleeding the cow out just a little bit to make black pudding. I have to know, is that how you do it? I kind of assumed the blood came from the butchering process or something. Let me know. Is it just like occasionally you drain some of the blood from a cow and you just like put a Band-Aid on it and like see you next month for more blood pudding? How does that work? Anyway, then James throws down the gauntlet, literally, like right in the road. Throws it down. This is from Rob the Bee. We're going to fight over there. Loudon Hill. It's kind of a big deal. Elizabeth is singing in her cage. It's kind of like the pre-battle, like she still has hope. She's hopeful in that cage. The armies meet at Loudon Hill. The English are all, remember, they are godless murderers. If we let them have Scotland, they will want England next. It's a whole if you give a mouse a cookie argument. Bruce is all, I could talk about God, but no. I could talk about honor, but no. Fight for whatever you want to fight about. Just make sure you fight. And then they all cheer. He's just like, you do you, but win. The English are slightly alarmed by the cheering Scots. Release the horses, as they do. But there are pointy wooden spikes and trenches and the war horses. Justice for war horses, guys. By the time they see it, it's too late, and then it's a melee. Forward, forward, sword, blood, horses, repeat. Valence is screwing up, and the prince is angry. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing wrong, because again, I'm not into the battles, really. He did something, and the prince got real mad. Melee, fighting, blood, blood, mud, and more blood. The Prince of Wales is all, find the Bruce. Like, we might not win, but if we can just kill Bruce, A for effort. He was at the top of the most wanted list. We see the new King Ed and Bruce slowly fighting toward each other. It's a real will they, won't they moment. And then we see James Douglas going ham on the battlefield. He was just working on that reputation. The English notice they are losing, and they start yelling retreat, but not the king. He's all, fight me in the mud, bro, one-on-one. Bruce and the king, formerly known as Prince, fight. Bruce wins, but then just kind of lets him get away without killing him. And that's because he definitely didn't die then. He still has to marry a 12-year-old and then be deposed by her before he dies. And he didn't die in battle. He died under mysterious circumstances, probably at the hands of his wife's boyfriend. Again, Episode 1 has all kinds of drama. Then it's sad because Rob the Bee sees the squire, Drew, with the crown, and he's dying. But he still has the crown, and he did end up protecting it with his life. And then Drew dies. We get the end little message that will tell us what happens later. The Battle of Loudon Hill marked a turning point in Robert's struggles to claim the Kingdom of Scotland. Yes, but he wouldn't actually win for another 7 years. James was granted back his family lands. Feared by his enemies, he was known as the Black Douglas. He was. The Black Douglas was a very scary man to most people that knew or encountered him. Angus decided to fight beside his king. His family became Lord of the Isles. Also true. The Prince of Wales was crowned King Edward II of England. Yep, and his first order was to bring Piers back from exile. His dad was like, don't do it. And he's like, it's the first thing I'm going to do. Years later, he was killed by his own nobles. And his wife, let's not forget the badass woman that was Isabella of France. Then we see Elizabeth getting out of the carriage on the beach, and she runs to Rob the Bee on horseback, and they hug and they kiss. So 7 years have now passed since that teenager died in battle just like 4 seconds ago. But they skip right by that. We don't talk about how it's been 7 years since then. So Elizabeth is no longer 17. She is now 25 because she's been imprisoned in solitary confinement for 8 years at this point. And then it says Elizabeth was eventually released in a prison exchange. She and Robert reunited and raised a family together. That is true. 300 years later, Robert's descendant James VI inherited the English crown and became both the King of Scotland and England. James VI of Scotland became James I of England after Queen Elizabeth died. He was King James VI and first. In that order, he's descended from Robert the Bruce. He's also descended from Henry Tudor, King Henry VII. Elizabeth asks, where's Marjorie? And Rob says she's waiting for you. They don't mention that because of the time lapse, little Marjorie is almost 18 now. She was raised by English nuns for almost half of her life at that point. And then he says, welcome home, your majesty. I brought you something. And he brought her flowers, and he calls her my queen. It's very cute. It's a cute moment. And then he carries her off toward the sunset. The end. What did you think of The Outlaw King, the fact and the fiction? Braveheart was mostly fiction, but The Outlaw King was overall pretty accurate. The things that they changed or left out made sense, I think, for the storytelling of a movie that spans 12 years of history. This movie spanned 12 years. They didn't age a second. None of them. And if you know about blood pudding, if that's how it really works, shoot me an email. I really do want to know. At longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com or on Facebook or Instagram at longlivethequeenpodcast. Long live to all the queens out there. And until next week, bye.
Will be remembered.
listening.